Tonight we're going to talk about how to win life's race. Remember the VBS meeting right after services? VBS is coming up in just a few weeks, and Randy's got the material in and things of that nature, and so that'll take place right after services. Also, a visitation tonight for Buddy Colton is taking place from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock at Willis Funeral Home. And continue to pray for those families, and also remember the Darrell Mitchell family at this time, as well as Dwayne mentioned in the prayer. His funeral's tomorrow afternoon. How to win life's race. I've preached this passage a lot of different times, and I went back and ran some of the lessons in a lot of different ways. But I don't think that I've ever preached it in a simplified version like this. 3 points. You know, the Christian life is likened to many things in the New Testament. And with this lesson, we want to compare the living the Christian life to a race. Paul uses the terminology in other places as well, as we'll see later on. But life, the Christian life, is a race. We joined when we became Christians. And we are to run. And it's important that we run well. So in this lesson, we want to consider how to win the greatest race in life we will ever run. First of all, you got to get ready. You know what the other 2 points are. You got the outline. You probably know without it. Number one, get ready. You see, when they say that at the beginning of the race, those athletes have already gotten ready. They have trained. They have patterned their life in such a way, if they're really, really interested in winning, they've done this. That race may be the only thing they've trained for in a long time. They're getting ready. They want to win. Well, we see in Hebrews 12, 1 and 2, some things that we must do to get ready to win the Christian race. I don't have it underlined, but I think we will note that number one, we need to be realizing that there are special people in the audience wanting us to win. It's important, even in a marathon. Even in a marathon, that you don't expect to come in first place, to usually have someone both at the starting line and then waiting for you at the finishing line. A lot of times it'll be a family member. It'll be a loved one, a close friend. And the reason it's important to be there, especially at the start of the race, is because they're cheering on. You're cheering on and said, you know, you can do it. You can finish. And somewhere, if they know where you're going to be, maybe the middle of the race, they'll pop up. And they'll cheer you on, and they'll cheer you on and keep running. You'll do. But then, at the end of the race, maybe they're there. And they're saying, keep coming. Keep running. Don't give up. This special cloud of witnesses, as the Hebrew writer talks about them, I believe, are none other than all the people we just read about in Hebrews 11th chapter, and the people in God's Hall of Fame of faith. So he got ready, maybe, number one, by understanding and listening to the crowd and hearing them say, you can do it, by maybe looking at their faces and recognizing them and knowing that they had run the same race before, sometimes under harsh conditions, sometimes under conditions that we're not going to have to run into, that running the race that God had given them meant sometimes even their lives. And here they are. They're waiting for us to run the race. But then there's prep time that comes before really the start of the race. The writer says, let us lay aside every weight and the sin that so easily besets us or ensnares us. You see, you can't win the Christian race with weight on. You can't run any race with weight on. In fact, the only time I think that, of my knowledge, unless it's in training, that they expect you to run may be in the military when you run with that full backpack on. And you go for a long ways. That's training. And maybe athletes will run with weights on as they're building up their leg muscles and building up their ankle muscles. But on the day of that race, they're not going to have those weights on. They're going to be taken off. And we, when living the Christian life, need to realize that there are some things that weigh us down. Temptation weighs us down. We ought to put it off. Holding grudges hold us down. We ought to put them off. Sense of failure sometimes will put us down. I didn't make it the last time I tried to run, or I've tried to run this race a lot of times, and I never succeeded. Maybe I won't succeed now. Put that weight off. And then the sin that so easily besets us, if you had to write down on this paper the answer to the question, and the question is this: what sin so easily besets you? What would it be? Bad temper? Bad language? Evil thoughts? Impure thoughts? What would it be? Whatever it is, the writer said we need to lay these things aside. We need to get rid of them. And then thirdly, we must run the race with endurance. And see, you can do that because you've already gotten ready. You got ready in training. You got ready by laying aside the weight. You got ready by laying aside the sin. And you're ready to run. And you remember the audience that's there. Get ready. Get ready and look to Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith. I've told you many times when I talk on this subject that one of the places I can see Jesus at is at the finish line of the race. He's already endured. He's already won. He's seated at the right hand of the throne of God before this event. He's, to my eyes, at the finish line. And I need to look to Him, and I need to see that I can get there, and He's at the finish line. And just like a family might say, you can do it, you can do it. I can see Jesus at the finish line rooting for me and rooting for you, saying, you can do it. You can win the race. So we need to get ready. And however, there is a sense in which we need to stay in a state of perpetual readiness. Because you see, the Christian race that we're winning, and the Christian race that we're trying to win and running, it may end all of a sudden. And we're either going to be winners or we're going to be losers. Jesus told the people as He was speaking in the parable of Matthew, the 25th chapter, after He just talked about that they needed to realize that the Son of Man is going to come, and that they needed to be prepared, He told them 3 parables about preparation and working. In the first parable, it was, you need to be ready. You need to watch. Remember, there were 10 virgins, 5 wise, 5 foolish. They were waiting for the bridegroom to come. He was perhaps delayed. They'd fell asleep. And then someone said, the bridegroom's coming, the bridegroom coming. And 5 woke up and they trimmed their lights and the flames came up. 5 woke up and they had ran out of oil. They couldn't borrow from the other 5. And the other 5 said, we can't give you any because we've got to have it. But you go where they sell the oil. And they missed out because they weren't ready. Jesus concluded that parable by saying, watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour in which the Son of Man is coming. In the book of Luke wrote in Luke the 12th chapter and verse 40, therefore you also be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour that you do not expect. You see, the Christian must commit his life to Christ. Just as that runner in that race will train and commit their life to winning that race, and maybe a number of races, Christians need to train and be committed to the Lord. Reading from the NET version of the Bible, the writer said, therefore I exhort you, brothers and sisters, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a sacrifice, alive. That's what he means by living sacrifice. A sacrifice alive, holy, and pleasing to God, which is your reasonable service. To win the Christian race, you've got to get ready. Well, in the next place, the next thing that the person in charge of the race usually say is get set. Meaning, get in your box, get in your proper stance, get ready, get set. And those who win the Christian race, they set their mind on the finish line. They know that in order to win the race, they're going to have to cross. And those who win the Christian race need to set their mind on the finish line. And as I said before, I believe, look to Jesus. You see, too many times we run the Christian race and we start looking off to the side, and we look off here, and we look to that. If we're running down in a pretty countryside of life, we may look over there and we may see things that appeal to us more than running the race. We may stumble, we may fall. But you see, if we're going to win, we've got to keep looking at the finish line. We've got to see what's going to happen at the end. And so we need to always set our minds on Jesus. Getting set involves setting our minds. Get set. A couple of verses to illustrate this point. Number 1, Romans 5 and 8 and verse 5. For those who live according to the flesh. Well, what is that? Well, that's people in the world. as people that are not Christians. For those who live according to the flesh, that can be some Christians that's too entangled in the world. For those who are living according to the flesh, set their minds on the things of the flesh. You see, they can't run the Christian race because they're occupied with this, they're occupied with that, they're occupied with this over here, they're occupied with this over here. And suddenly, all their attention mainly is given to things of the flesh, but maybe their serving God gets 2% or 3% of their lives, and that won't work. Set their minds on the things of the flesh, but those who live according to the Spirit, the things of the Spirit. Where's your mindset during the week? Where's your mindset right now? Do we worry more about the things of the flesh than we do the things of the Spirit? Paul would also write in Colossians 3, verses 1 through 2, when he would pose this: if then you are raised with Christ, there's a premise. If you're raised with Christ, and we know how we're raised with Christ. If then you are raised with Christ, seek things that are above. Doesn't mean up here on the ceiling, doesn't mean in the sky. Things that are above, where? Where God is. And he tells that where Christ is. Where's Christ? He's seated at the right hand of the throne of God. What got Christ to go to the cross? What got Christ to endure the things of the cross? Why could he say, the Philippian writer Paul say that he endured the cross, or he endured the shame set before him, and indicated it was with joy? Why? We might say, well, he was dying for humanity. I don't think that's it. I think it was because he knew that after he died, after he was buried, and after he was in the ground 3 days, he would rise again, and after a little bit, he would go home and take his rightful place at the right hand of the throne of God. Well, where do we need to place our mind? At the right hand of the throne of God where Jesus is. And he said, set your mind on things above, not on things of the earth. Dedication and determination must be continued. And if we set our minds on earthly things, we will lose. One more verse on this topic. Philippians 3 and verse 19. Paul talks about those that are causing problems and those that are not living right. But I think it's important to set what their major problem is. Whose end is destruction, whose God is their belly, and whose glory is their shame. Well, what type of people are these? Who set their mind on earthly things. Where will your mind be at this week? Oh, I know we need to pay attention. Johnny gets in that bus tomorrow and fires it up and goes down the highway. He's got to pay attention to the traffic. He's got to pay attention to those little children on the bus and try to ignore them maybe to a certain degree anyway. He's got to get them to school, and he's going to do other things during the day. And I know that we have to pay attention to things, some of the things on this earth. But see, what he's saying is that shouldn't be what guides our life. We ought to wake up every morning and realize whatever I do today, I need to do to the glory of God. And if I can't do it to the glory of God, I don't need to do it. Whatever I do today, I need to live in such a way as I get closer to heaven. Whatever I do today, I need to live in such a way to where it gets me closer to the finish line where Jesus is. I need to live in such a way where I am set to keep winning the Christian race. And I think that's important that we understand that. And then finally, that word. Get ready. Get set. Go. We must go for God. Not in our own strength, but in the strength He gives. Listen to the psalmist in Psalm 71 and verse 16. I will go in the strength of the Lord God. I will make mention of your righteousness, of yours only. How are you going to get through the day when the day's hard? You go in the strength of God. What are you going to do? You're going to tell about God. You're going to tell about God's righteousness. And then we need to remember the familiar words of Paul in Philippians 4 and verse 13 when he said, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And finally, we need to realize we must go until the race is finished. I believe that Paul wrote Hebrews. I may be wrong, but I believe that probably he did. But I know he said these three things. Luke, by inspiration of the Holy Spirit in Acts 20, penned the words of Paul. So he was talking to the people and the elders in the island of Miletus and others that were warning him of what was to come in Jerusalem, where he was dead set to go, said, none of these things move me. Well, Paul, they're going to put you in prison. Paul, you may die. Paul said, none of these things move me. And he said, nor do I count my life dear to myself. Why? So that I may finish my race with joy. And note the end and the ministry which I received from the Lord Jesus to testify to the gospel of the grace of God. The thought that's crossed my mind, what it might have been like to sit in one of Paul's sermons somewhere. He might have said, you know, you might know me as Saul of Tarsus. I was that man. And he might have said, you know, you knew me as Saul of Tarsus, and I did the things that they said I did, and perhaps worse things. But you may want to know why I changed. I changed because I saw Jesus on that road to Damascus. And I knew that He was both Lord and Christ. And I gave my life to Him and obeyed the gospel that was taught to me. And I'm here to share it with you, even though it may cost me my very life. What a powerful lesson that would have been, to be in that audience and to hear that great soldier of the cross. Paul said, I want to finish the race set before me. Paul said, I want to finish the ministry. We all have a ministry. We're all ministers. Now I got a lesson entitled that. We're all ministers. We signed up for that when we became children of God. Minister is simply one that serves. We're all servants of God. We're all servants of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Let's be determined to finish the race. Let's be determined to finish the ministry and tell people about the amazing gospel of the grace of God. And then in 1 Corinthians 9 and verse 24, Paul asks this question. Do you not know that those who run in a race all run, but one receives the prize? Well, how are we supposed to run? Run in such a way that you may obtain it. I don't watch horse racing all that much. But last week when we were gone, the Kentucky Derby was run. 80-1. The horse that they thought couldn't do it won. Did that jockey think he could win? I don't know. But the horse did. And with the help of that jockey, that horse passed that pack and ended at the finish line. We need to realize we all got to win, and we can win if we all run like we want to win. And then the great Apostle Paul, near the close of his life, wrote these words. 2 Timothy 4, 7 through 8. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Why is Paul so fine on these things? Well, the verse earlier he said, I'm already being poured out like a drink offering, meaning that his life was actually ebbing away from him. And we don't know how long that he lived after penning these words. And Paul said, finally, there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will give to me on that day. And not to me only, but to all those who loved his appearing. We talked about that a little bit this morning. You see, we need to realize there is no stopping place this side of heaven. There's no place where we can say we've done enough. There's no place where we can say we worked enough. There's no place where we said, I've been doing this a long time, let somebody else do it. You got to run. And you got to run to the finish line. You got to run by number one, get ready. Number two, get set. And number three, go. If you're in need of anything tonight, the lesson is yours. Won't you come as we stand and sing?
Why do you wait, dear brother? Oh, why do you tarry so long? Your Savior is waiting to give you a place in His sanctified throne. Why not? Why not? Why not come to Him now? Why not? Why not? Why not come to Him now? What do you hope, dear brother, to gain by a further delay? There's no one to save you but Jesus. There's no other way. way but his way. Why not? Why not? Why not come to him now? Why not? Why not? Why not come to him now? Do you not feel, dear brother, his spirit now striving within? Oh, why not accept his salvation and throw off the burden of sin? Why not? Why not? Why not come to him now? Why not? Why not? Why not come to him now? Why do you wait, dear brother? The harvest is passing away. Your Savior is longing to bless you. Let